armed and dangerous! Again! 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 Again!
Spoilers, let's just get that out the way right now. It's past opening weekend, so I'm going to be going full on about this movie. So this is your spoiler warning now. If you want to know my quick thoughts, the movie's great. It's definitely one of the better Marvel movies we've gotten recently, and I like the direction they're taking it. It seems like they're trying to make changes for the better, returning us back to classic Marvel. So boom, if you haven't gone to go see it, that's my spoiler-free review. Go watch the movie. Alright, now for the spoiler review. I genuinely like this movie. It could have been better, but we'll get into that later. So I just want to start off by saying that I purposely didn't watch any reviews or any opinions about this movie before I made this video and before watching the movie, so that the thoughts that I have here are my pure, unfiltered thoughts. I also want to start off by saying that I have not watched Black Widow yet, and I'm still not going to watch Black Widow. This movie hasn't motivated me to watch Black Widow in the slightest. I'm not even curious to know what happens, especially because now we know that Taskmaster died. Spoilers! Taskmaster is barely in this movie, and there's no point in me investing my time into this character. Granted, they might reintroduce the character in another way in the future, but the Black Widow version, I have no interest in knowing because they just fucked off and died in the beginning of this movie. Another thing I feel like I also think is important is that, like, I don't think I'm necessarily eager to watch this movie again. And there's a reason for that. I'll go into it a little bit more later, but, like, I'll definitely, like, watch, like, clips of this movie, like, on YouTube, because there are a lot of moments that, like, I like about the movie. But the entire movie as a whole, I don't think I'm necessarily, like eager to watch it again. I'm not saying I'll never watch the movie again. I do think it's a good movie. However, just like the movie itself, it's not like something like I necessarily want to see again. And I feel that way about other movies that I like. I said that about Deadpool and Wolverine, and I still haven't watched it again till this day, even with it on Disney Plus. It's just some movies, they just don't flow well. That's like, oh, I can sit down and spend more time watching the movie. Sinners, I'm absolutely gonna go see again. Probably I'll see it in theaters, maybe again if I have the chance, if it's still in theaters. But some movies, it's just, I'm like, I've seen it enough. It's good, recommended. It's definitely good for the experience. It definitely adds to the collective of the movie watching experience. Like, I feel the way about the first Thor movie. Like, I probably will never watch that movie again, but is it a vital part of the MCU that adds to the story? Yeah, sure, but am I excited to see the Thor 1 movie again? No, not really. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It's just not a movie I want to see again. Now, towards the end of the video, I'm actually going to list out a pros and cons for this movie. I think it's actually worth listing out a pros and cons for this movie because I do see the potential of where they're going with this. I just feel like some things are good, some things are bad, and they're worth separating rather than just putting it all into, like, one narrative streamline of the video. For example, Captain America 4, I didn't really feel like was a pros and cons necessary. Honestly, I didn't even make a video on it. It was a good movie. I just didn't think it was, like, have, like, enough going for it to, like, really break down the fine pieces of the movie. This movie, I feel like, because I feel like they did such a good job of making this movie and the characters really fleshed out and everything going forward, what they set up for the future, it's worth going on, okay, well, where can we go from here? Let's look into this a little bit further. Now, the big theme of this movie is overcoming your past trauma and accepting your past mistakes and becoming a better person. I think what's really interesting about this movie is that almost every single character in the movie was an established character that basically had, like, their own storyline from a previous iteration of a Marvel adaptation, so they didn't have to, like, spend too much time on their backstories or what drives them or what motivates them. They also established, like, these characters aren't, like, mustache twirlers or, like, you know, super evil to the point where they're beyond return and they have to die or anything like that, other than Taskmaster, because I guess fuck Taskmaster, right? I guess just beyond recovery. Right. But yeah, basically it's like, okay, we're working with, characters that are already established. So the movie doesn't waste too much time focusing on things we already know, which is a big benefit. In fact, I really do appreciate the way they use Sentry and kind of Bucky to force the characters to confront their traumas so that they can be better people. Because at some point, all of these people, they had like the will to be better, but things took a dark turn for them at one point in their life where they could have been good people if they were just, had a better upbringing. But because of just unfortunate events, they're bad people, but they don't want to be bad people. And if they could live a better life where they're heroes, then yeah, they would absolutely take that. And we see their journey to becoming those people. I'd say my favorite section of the movie is probably the dreamscape, especially the climax of that, where I really like the fact that like all of the Thunderbolts come to hug Sentry. And it's like a really emotional scene where you're like, wow, you feel like these are all hurt and damaged people, but they're like coming together and they're like hugging him and they're pulling him away from his trauma, because it's not about fighting that, it's about accepting that and moving on to become a better person. I even believe there was a Freddy Krueger reference in there from one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I'm not sure if there were other references, but I'm pretty sure there was one scene in there, which I'll put up now, of like a Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street reference. I'm pretty sure I caught that. I also really did enjoy the emotional scenes of this movie. It didn't feel cheesy or forced to me because the struggle was like a real genuine struggle about like identity crisis, and I guess it was like relatable to me. Some of the things Yelena was saying I didn't necessarily relate to 100%, but she's like, yo, all I do is come home, drink, which I don't relate to because I don't drink, but she's like, oh, all I do is come home, I look at my phone for hours, and I go back to work and I think about all the bad things I've done, and it's like, yo, I feel like that's a lot of people these days. We just can like relate to that. So like, she's complaining to her father about how she's fulfilled and she wants to like have a more purpose in life. I think that's like a really realistic approach to like, from going from that to being a superhero is, a genuine arc. I feel like the characters aren't like unrealistic, so it allows us to like immerse ourselves into the movie more. As far as Bob / Sentry / Void goes, I think they are a great addition to the cast. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they have to do in the future, because I know Sentry is like one of the strongest Marvel characters. I wonder how they're gonna handle this character going forward. I don't know about you guys, but I was getting like The Boys vibes from like him whenever he was on screen. Like when he's Bob and he's dealing with Yelena, it reminds me of Sam and Emma from Gen V. And then when he turns into Sentry and he's dealing with the lady from Seinfeld, he's like Homelander and Stillwell. I thought that was a really funny dynamic and interesting. It kind of like, I don't know if that was intentional, but it felt like The Boys to me. I don't know. Okay, so let's go over some of the pros and cons. I thought the fight scene with Sentry was absolutely phenomenal. I do feel like they probably could have like done a bit more, but he was clearly holding back, which was the intention of it, because they're not beating Sentry. Like I said, I know he's one of the strongest Marvel characters, but I feel like they could have probably done a little bit more creative stuff. But I really like how they displayed like how strong someone of his level can be, and it makes me excited for like fight scenes in the future Marvel, how these characters are going to be introduced. Like, because like Vision was a strong character, but he didn't really have cool fight scenes. It would just be him flying around, slamming other people into walls and stuff like that. Sentry actually, even though he didn't have a lot of fight experience, it was pretty cool. So I'm wanting to see more of that. I also loved how this is branded as like a darker toned movie, so they didn't shy away from certain things. Like at some point, like as far as we knew, because like I don't know too much about the comics, like we see Sentry just kill a little girl and it's like, oh my god, what the heck. Now I'm not saying I take joy in seeing children die, I'm just saying that the darker tone, it comes like a shock for like Marvel. Granted, she does come back to life, but just in that moment the shock value hit me. I'm like, oh shit, this is getting real. I also like how they weren't afraid to say that like one of their new superheroes is like was a meth head at one point. Like, okay, like yeah, abuse and trauma and substance abuse is one thing, but when you just say, yeah, this guy he used to be addicted to meth, now he's not. That's I do appreciate a darker tone like that. I will say the comedy in this movie was actually pretty good. I'll be quite frank, the comedy really carried this movie. If there wasn't the comedy in it, a lot of people probably would say it's forced or it was annoying, eye roll. I don't think a lot of the comedy in this movie, I'm not saying every joke was a 10 out of 10. I'm just saying that the comedy in this movie was pretty decent, and it was honestly the carrying factor in this movie. Without the comedy, it probably would have felt flat and stale, and a lot of people in my theater was laughing. So I think it did its job. And then lastly, for the pros, I think they did a really good job of setting up future events, because it felt like classic Marvel to me. It felt like they were focusing on the characters in front of us, but they were saying things that like make the world like it had good world building. Is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to over analyze it. It had good world building. It sets up for the future, but still focuses on what's happening now in the present, and it connects directly into the next like movie that's happening right after with the Fantastic Four, which is just like phase 1. So I appreciate that they did that. Now the cons. The biggest con I'm gonna say, I feel like there wasn't enough action in this movie. The comedy carries the movie, which is the pro, but the con is that there's not enough action, which is why the comedy had to carry the movie. Like I said, if there's no comedy in this movie, it's a flop of a movie. It's not entertaining to watch. It would be abysmal to get through. But the fact that it is kind of funny does carry it, but that's because there's no action. I was expecting more brutality. Granted, I know all these people are trying to be better people, but that wasn't like all of their goals from the start, and they still are in like life-threatening situations. So I really do wish that they had more action and more brutality. Like there's a scene where they're literally sieging the castle, and then the main villain, the lady from Seinfeld, is just like, "Oh yeah, come up." Granted, I know she has a Homelander up her sleeve, but still, they could have like had a big victory fight together Avengers scene like that together, and then they could have like had their defeat, which would have made it more impactful. And lastly, I guess I would say that I guess I wasn't really that impressed with like Bob as a character. Like I know I just spent time like glazing him about like, oh, the way they introduced the darker tone, and I liked the fight scene, but him as a character, I wasn't really too impressed. It's not like, like giving a character trauma doesn't necessarily make them a good character. So, I appreciate the story about it, but the actual character itself, I wasn't like, I can't wait to see Bob or Sentry back on screen. So hopefully they do a bit more of his character in the future. And lastly, I do want to talk about that amazing post-credit scene. I think it's like the longest post-credit scene in the Marvel history, which it does set up a lot of, conflict for like the Avengers going into the Avengers movies, which I'm gonna love happening. I can imagine what they're probably going to do is they're going to just have West Coast Avengers and East Coast Avengers. That's probably just how that's going to end out when it gets resolved. But also the Fantastic Four being shown and the Fantastic Four being the next movie. I love that they're finally having post-credit scenes that transition into the next movie that's coming up, like how they had Thor's hammer and then Thor was the next movie. It just makes it seem like they actually know where they're going now, and they've learned from their mistakes. We don't have to like get a post-credit scene that's going to be relevant literally 20 movies and TV shows later. But I'm actually going to break that down more because I do want to talk about that post-credit scene a little bit more. But yeah, I'm super excited going to go see the Fantastic Four in July. It's actually when my birthday is. I'm going to probably go see it for my birthday, and then I'll drop a review for that. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't, I would really appreciate it. We're going to make it big. This is only the start. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.